All right. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Bernhard. This is Nicolas. And today we'll show you how we turned deploying a data app at Merck from like a weeks-long odyssey to a 3-minute task. And first of all, who are we? So as mentioned, I'm a data scientist, and Nicolas is the global head of platform products portfolio. So he's responsible for Merck's data platform. We're both big fans of the PyData community, and we've spoken here at PyData and local meetups before, so it's great to be back. And also some quick key facts about Merck. So Merck is a science and technology company, and we're the proud keystone sponsor of this conference. We have more than 62,000 employees worldwide, operating in more than 65 countries. And we actually have also a very long history, more than 350 years, and we were founded right here in Darmstadt, so just around the corner. And with that, let me go to the motivation of this talk. So before I joined Merck, I used to work as a data science consultant. And the key challenge I saw in every company was going from a prototype to production. So imagine you developed a Streamlit app. That happened to me quite often. On your notebook, business is excited, but then you hit reality, and so you have to deal with questions such as, how do I deploy this so that end users can access it? How do I get access to live data instead of working with CSV exports? And how do I set up all of these difficult things such as single sign-on and authentications, permissions, and so on? And so for me, oftentimes, building the prototype, for example, a simple dashboard, you could do this in a matter of days, but then getting it deployed oftentimes took weeks, which left me very frustrated. And of course, it also blocks data scientists from shipping apps to end users and iterating with them. And so when I then joined Merck 3.5 years ago and discovered Merck's app service that Nicolas and his team built, I was super excited. And what you can see on the left is a screenshot of the app service console, where I can manage all of my apps. And here I can just click on launch, then select the template. And then 3 minutes later, I have a running app with single sign-on, CI/CD, etc., and with governed data access. And I will do a live demo in a minute. And what you also see here on the right-hand side are some basic stats. So right now, the app service has close to 700 active apps, reaching almost 3,000 monthly active users. And it costs per active app per month around €21. And Nicolas will later go into all of the architecture details that make it possible to run the platform at such a scale. All right, so let's put it to the test. Please help me cross your fingers that the live demo will actually work. And so for this, I actually have the app service console here. And this is very hard to actually maneuver. So I can, as mentioned, click on launch and then create a new app. So I have to type in a name, PyData Hello World. And then I can also select a pre-existing template. In this case, I'm actually happy with the Streamlit template. I can configure additional owners, contributors, and so on and so forth. And also, very importantly, I have to link each app to a use case. Nicolas will explain more what this actually means. And what I also really like is that it's just a matter of, where is this? Here. It's just a matter of a couple of clicks to, for example, also connect to external APIs. So if I want to use OpenAI, I just select it here. Let me actually select the productive version. Or if I want to have access to Snowflake and need an API key, it's also just one click. And then once I'm done, I'm clicking on launch. And you can now set your timer. So the platform will now take care of the rest in terms of it will create a repository, build the default Docker image, deploy it, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to now sit there for 2 minutes and wait. That's why in the meantime, I'm going to walk you a bit through, for example, templates that we can provide. So here you see the latest version of the Streamlit template that we can use for like rapid prototyping. And yeah, I'm an active contributor to this template, so I try to make sure it follows, like uses all of the modern PyData tools, such as UV for dependency management, and you name it. And it also comes with a pre-configured Claude MD, so you can directly start coding. And also what is very flexible is here you already have a couple of predefined GitHub workflows that, for example, deploy the app service, run the test suite, and so on. And what I wanted to show you now is a bit more, and this is something that excites me a lot in terms of how easy it is to get started. So here I already created a new repository based off the template and also a new app. So this app service usage data dashboard. And I linked this to a use case that actually contains app service telemetry data. And what I want to try now is, while the other app is being deployed, to show you what working with it looks like in practice. So what I can do is I can just, I cloned it already locally, but didn't do anything else. And now I have already started creating a prompt that says, create a Streamlit page that reproduces the metrics using the app service KPI monthly data set. Well, the question is, of course, which metrics? And now this will be maybe a bit too ambitious, but what I'm trying to do now is I will create a screenshot of the stats that you saw before, and then hopefully find a screenshot. Yes, it's here. Copy it, and then also try to paste it into the prompt. And yeah, and now I can, it will start running. And so what we will do now is what you see is it tries to query the underlying data set, get the schema, and also run a sample query to just fetch some rows to get an idea of the structure of the data set. And then, fingers crossed, it should develop the first version of this Streamlit page. Oops. And in the meantime, I can already start my local Streamlit development server. It's here. And then let's see. Okay, let's allow this. So I think, yeah, I tried now to create a new page. So if I refresh this and now find my mouse, wherever it is, and access this page, you get, hopefully, yeah, you get the numbers that you saw before on the slide. So what happens under the hood, right? So it fetched the data set from the data platform and then computed those metrics and also showed how they compared to last year. And so, yeah, this was basically to just show you what it looks like working with it. But of course, it has a dual purpose because I also wanted to, spend the 3 minutes until the app is up and running. So let's refresh the page. Yeah, it should be there now. So this is the Hello World app that we created. And as mentioned before, it comes with single sign-on already. And we support multiple data platforms as backend. Here we're using Foundry as the default. And here's the single sign-on page where it's just not the first time that I access the app. I have to allow it that it can query data on my behalf. And then once I have done that, it will redirect me to the actual page, which also comes with a lot of sample pages to showcase platform capabilities, such as, as mentioned, it will already have an OpenAI API key for me, so I can directly start using LLMs and so on and so forth. Okay, so much for the live demo. So maybe let's do a quick recap because I went quite a bit back and forth. So first thing that I think is great is that as a data scientist, it's great to have a self-service platform where you can just create an app in minutes, and that it already comes with features such as single sign-on and CI/CD. It's also, as you saw, just a matter of one click to configure access to external systems and to give it access to LLMs. And I think what's also important is that I'm not being locked in here to just have a template that I can't change. Templates are actually very customizable for your own stack. And as you saw, it also then comes with agentic engineering support. And with that, I'm actually now going to hand over to Nicolas, the magician who developed the first version of this and is responsible for the app service.
Thanks, Bernhard. Impressive demo. I think the demo gods are on our side. One-shotted the same KPIs that we saw on the slides. I'm definitely not a magician, but maybe some of you have heard of this term here, or this phrase, that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. In our case, I have my own version. It's a heavily parameterized CloudFormation template that you saw in action. Of course, that's not the only secret behind the app service, but the core is basically an infrastructure as code template that is heavily parameterized, and then also a lot of building blocks that are beneath this template. So in the next 20 minutes, I want to walk you through the architecture of the app service, how we do govern data access at Merck, and why it enables the zero tickets creation process of apps, and as well some key design principles which we follow while developing the service the last 4 years. So let's start with the workflow when you create an app. You have seen Bernhard accessing the management console, which is a React front end deployed on S3 and CloudFront, and a serverless Lambda function with Nest.js as a backend. So all TypeScript, very handy nowadays, but the first version was created by my working student back in 2022, all written by hand. So the management console takes the inputs and deploys a CloudFormation template that will create a CloudFormation stack in AWS. Within this stack, the main piece is, of course, the container of the application. And in the demo, you saw that we created the Streamlit sample app. Afterwards, developers or data scientists can then modify fully flexible this container and can deploy any kind of Docker container. Then we have a very lean authentication sidecar next to each app as a container based on Nginx and Vouch proxy. And this is a very important piece of the architecture, which I will explain more in detail in the following slides. We also have custom resources that are managed to provide the integrations into all the other pieces of our ecosystem. One piece that was missing in the previous slide was obviously the data platform, because those apps are extensions of data and use cases on our platform. And so the data needs to come into the app, or the app needs to be able to write back into the data platform. And when an end user opens an app, we have a shared load balancer that redirects to the ECS service and task of Fargate. Fargate is a serverless container runner, so you don't have to manage any infrastructure. You can just tell Fargate, this is my containers, give me this amount of CPU and memory, and it will run it for you. So we route this request to the authentication sidecar, which redirects to the data platform, where, if you remember, you saw the dialog where Bernhard needed to press allow. And this is a very important piece of the architecture, because it creates a scope-down user token, which is then forwarded by the authentication sidecar into the container. The container can then use this user token with a connector library to fetch data from the data platform on behalf of the user with the correct permissions. You also saw that we talked about use cases, we talked about data, and we talked about apps. And that might sound a little bit abstract, so I'm going to take a step back to explain a little bit how we do govern data access and why it's the fundamental for the scaling of the app service. I'm sure you have a similar version for your company, how the data generally flows from source to the use cases, to the targets, to the value creation. And in our company, we settled kind of on this model. It's a simplified version, of course. We have the data sources on the left side, which are then ingested into the data platforms. Data products are being built. And then there is a break, and use cases that have a clear intent work based on those data products to produce value for the company. And there is an implicit contract that is being made between the data owners and the use case owners, that the use case owners only use that data for the specified purpose in the use case and not for others, and that they also take care about the data and what they expose to their use case users. So in this case, we have two example use cases, a sales forecasting app and a quality dashboard. So how does that now link to the app service? Each application in the app service is linked to a use case. And when a user opens the app, even though the user could have theoretically access to both the sales and the quality data set that you see here, when accessing the platform directly, accessing the app, the user token is scoped down to only the resources that are linked to the use case. So the access through the app to the quality data set will be forbidden. This has two consequences. First of all, it enforces our governance model so that the intent of the use case cannot be extended unlimitedly. Second of all, it is a fundamental security. It's the resolution for a fundamental security issue that would disallow scaling of apps or accessing of production data from apps without any review, which is here the case. We accessed the production data. There was no one in between that looked at the code or whatever. Let me do an excursus why this is important. Imagine a hypothetical situation where an M&A director who's responsible for making acquisitions for a company has their own use case where they list the acquisition targets in a data set. She also has access to the sales forecasting use case because she needs to know how the long-term sales of different areas of the company will evolve to understand what is a good target and what is a bad target. In the case, if there is no token scoping, a malicious developer could deploy an app that gets the user token, enumerates all data sets, and exfiltrates the acquisition target data set and do something that we don't want with this data. In our case, apps only get scoped user tokens. So they would, because the app is linked to a use case, the tokens are scoped to the projects of this use case, and requests to other data sets would be forbidden and fail. And that is the core principle why we are able to grant basically production data access from second zero, because the use case owner and the app developer, they are basically the same trust principle and own this data anyway, so they can decide who gets access to it. I also have two slides in the slide deck, how we do that under the hood for Foundry and Snowflake, and they're in the slides if you want to know more, but out of time reasons we are skipping those slides here. So the app service started in 2022 as a side project during COVID times. And out of necessity, we had to follow a few patterns to cope with all of the features and demands that people had, and also the maintenance. So we basically always didn't have time to do any maintenance, so everything needs to be automated. And I want to share a few patterns from this journey, I would say. So I think the first one I want to share is that we heavily rely on the infrastructure as code provider, in this case CloudFormation, but it could also be Terraform or other equivalent solutions to do the orchestration of the infrastructure and the dependencies. So we fully rely on it for the state management. We rely on it for the rollback behavior as something goes wrong, creating apps, deleting apps, and dependency ordering. And we, of course, get audit trails out of the box. We get events out of the box. So AWS emits events when CloudFormation things changed, and we can hook in integrations. A key piece is that we can extend CloudFormation with custom resources. And also here, other infrastructure as code solutions have their own version of custom resources. So this can also be done with other technology. But in our case, we of course have the data platform integration as a custom resource, Azure DevOps repository and pipeline, cleanup script for the ECR images, integration into our Bayesian backend API that was also presented last year here at PyCon, as well as our AI/ML services to get access to LLM APIs. And those custom resources are quite easy to implement. They're just Lambda functions that need to react to create, read, update, and delete events. And then those Lambda functions can manage the infrastructure and return back the relevant information to the stack template. Another principle is that we always put the developer experience first. And we go to a very much extent to do that. So, of course, we have the sample apps that you saw. We try to put the developer on the right path by always creating a repository and CI/CD integrations. So it's the official blueprint to deploy apps. You can manually push Docker images as well, but I don't think anybody is really using that. We also integrate with GitHub through OpenID Connect. As I said, we have the ecosystem integrations. We also have our newly added HPC cluster, AWS accounts, you name it. We developed custom developer libraries that abstract away how you interact with our data platforms. And so you can run the same line of code within the app service and locally. You saw that when Bernhard ran the app locally with UV run. You actually didn't see the code, but there would be no code change required to deploy this app, just a git push to the app, and then it would run completely like that on the app service using the scoped user token from the logged in user. We recently added a conditional firewall to make fine-grained egress possible. And we also have more, let's say, production apps, not the Streamlit, the 5-minute Streamlit app, more production apps. And those also can use dev, QA, and prod environment and link it to one repository and pipeline. From a platform engineering perspective, we implement quotas from day one. So everybody can just create a certain amount of apps and memory and CPU, just to avoid getting a denial of service from our own users. Of course, quota increases are possible. We try to emulate a serverless behavior in the sense of a request response style serverless, which is not possible today in Fargate. So what we do is, usually the Fargate task is stopped, and when the first user accesses the app, the CloudFormation template starts the app, the user waits on the starting page, and after a minute, the page refreshes and the app is there. This is very neat and totally tolerable for research apps with a small amount of users, and so on. We also stop apps automatically after 30 minutes if there are no requests. Of course, this can be changed and configured to run all the time. We also have schedules for apps that can start and stop for business hours. But these things keep the cost low and also make no headaches for both me as a platform engineer as well as the data scientist that can just know my app will anyway stop. It's fine, I can leave it running. It will stop in 30 minutes. We share anonymized telemetry data with the app owners, so they know how many people are accessing the apps to improve the experience on the apps. We also scan all we also scan all Docker images with Inspector to have security built in. So let me summarize from the platform perspective the key success factors of the app service. The first one is that we put the developer experience first, and we make it very easy to do the right thing. Internally, we delegate as much as we can to others to do hard things, so we can keep doing simple things and don't have a lot of code in the code base. We have a lot of automations to keep the platform cheap and reliable, and we always think about keeping the cost low. But I think the key enabling factor for the scale of the app service is that we early on harmonized the governance model and how data is governed at the company. And because of the use case-based governance, we can do the scaling, we can do the scoping to the use case resources, and thus we don't need independent code review steps that make sure that the scenario I painted is not happening in the apps. Having said that, I want to hand back to Bernhard for the summary.
Yeah, thank you, Nicolas, for the deep dive. So let me do the wrap up. So Nicolas just shared his perspective from more like a data platform engineer or owner, but I also want to provide like a conclusion from more like a data scientist. So for me, if I were to join another company, I would have kind of a mental checklist of what I would like to have for me in terms of developer experience, so that I can quickly develop Streamlit apps and not get stuck as I motivated in the beginning, as I often saw before. So ideally, you want to have a self-service app platform where you can create your own apps in a matter of minutes, and they should already come pre-configured with single sign-on and things like CI/CD, because I think oftentimes as a data scientist, this is like, not your core expertise. So it's great if you already have this built in and also have then, templates that you can use. Nicolas also explained quite in depth the concept of scoped user tokens. And I also think this is great that I don't have to think about, how do I develop the app such that it, only accesses the data that it's supposed to, but I can really rely on the platform here and this scoping so that it will only access the resources that it's supposed to. And then I think as a data scientist, I want to, use modern tools and platforms. So it's great to have a template that can give me already a working app on day one. But I think for me, it's also important that I can customize these templates and also customize them to the full extent. So you saw the GitHub repository before. I can change anything that I want there in the GitHub workflows, or change what I use for dependency management and so on. So I don't have this login, and I can always stay on, kind of the cutting edge and even contribute back to the overall templates. So these are the 4 main points. And before we come to the end, I also wanted to, last but not least, mention one more thing that I'm really excited about. So in my opinion, with tools like Cloud Code, way more people can now build apps. And you saw this in the demo. With the right template, it's one prompt to produce a working Streamlit page. And at Merck, we have a fast-track upskilling program that trains domain experts, so people with very limited coding experience, to become app builders. By the way, shout out to Boris. Where is he? Yeah, he's actually over there, who's responsible for this program. And as a mentor, I experienced firsthand here how fast people can actually develop their first app with a good template and tools like Cloud Code. And so I'm convinced that this will accelerate the growth of the app service even further. So I think this growth trajectory will continue. But of course, this only works if you have a scalable platform with a great developer experience and these strong security guardrails behind that. And I think with that, I want to conclude our talk. And thank you for listening. By the way, we also have a talk in the afternoon today by Niels and Andreas, 2 colleagues from Merck, who will present Octopus AutoML, the framework. They developed a framework for extracting signal from small and high dimensional data. And also, of course, reach out to us anytime in the conference if you have questions that won't be answered in the Q&A.
Thank you so much. That was an insightful talk. And the next one also sounds interesting. Well, let's move on to the QA session. We have quite some time. Let me refresh. Maybe some new questions come up. Okay. First question, how do you manage security updates of your containers?
So we have a security boundaries around the containers. So they cannot really talk to anything except the allow listed host names. That is kind of a parameter for us. We are rolling out GitHub Actions Dependerbot integration. So we want to start early there, updating the dependencies. We are enforcing, or we want to start enforce log files with the recent supply chain attacks. But I would say we don't have a fully developed and implemented solution across the company. Right now, it's the app owner's responsibility, but we are trying from the platform side to find a good compromise between flexibility and speed and security. And yeah, the boundary of the application when it's running is quite strong. So even though there would be an infection, we do think that the exfiltration would not work. But at the same time, we also want to, as I said, start at the source with Dependerbot and other tools that the CI and version control providers provide for us.
And also the apps by default don't have internet access. So, you know, these recent supply chain attacks that just then upload data somewhere to the internet won't work. And yeah, that's just one point to add.
Is it something that you can think of for like future releases, a feature that you can have in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we also saw the talk on the first day. I mean, where I forgot who was it, but somebody actually introduced a framework that tracks exactly this issue in terms of how do apps and repositories, which ones already have the latest security fixes and so on. And so I think this would be also a great addition to the platform.
Community always help. Next question. Where do you draw the line between letting people spin up a Streamlit app for KPIs versus serving them via a BI solution like Power BI?
So we like to give people options, and then it depends basically on the strategy of the sector data office, in which direction people are going. But centrally, we try to create the best offering, like a menu, and you can pick from the menu. But we don't force anyone into any direction. So personally, I think it really comes from the skills and the appetite. If someone is trained, has the appetite to build their own complete apps, then we don't want to stop them. If they rather want to build Tableau dashboards, fine for me as well. I think also personal opinion, I think more and more will go to these kind of purpose-built apps. What I have seen also how good it works. I think there will be more templates, there will be more structure that BI apps can be implemented as individual apps and less into tools like Power BI or Tableau.
Yeah, thank you. Next question, why do you use CloudFormation instead of other infrastructure as code tools like Terraform or OpenTofu?
So there's no real technical reason why we use CloudFormation. It's more that in the company, we already had a few predecessors of those services and that use CloudFormation. And once you start with something, it's already, as I said, launched in 2022 or 4 years old. So yeah, it's more a decision and not based on any kind of underlying technology factors.
Yeah. Next question. Where do you, I guess we asked this question. All right. This one, how do you do lifecycle management for the 700 plus apps? Is this fully automated? And how do you avoid breaking things like doing updates?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we always, whenever people update their app, we update them to the latest template. So the template has to be forward compatible. So whenever we do changes, we do them in a forward compatible style, so we can just do additions, basically. When you don't update your app, you're running with this version that is around. Every app, when it starts, it gets the latest Nginx and Vouch proxies, so the sidecar will always update. Also there, we only do forward compatible changes. But these updates are always isolated to the app. So we rarely do any changes to the surroundings that are in the hot path of the request of the user. So we don't really change anything in the ALB or in other pieces. So when something breaks, it's probably in an individual app, and we have a dev QA and prod environment for the app service, and we would notice earlier. When it comes to the 700 apps, to be honest, we sometimes do cleanups, campaigns, but we just leave it to the users because a stopped app is, well, I don't care. A stopped app is a stopped app. There are almost zero cost for a stopped app, and so they can live. Sometimes every year or so, we send out some emails, hey, you didn't open your app in a year, you didn't update it, maybe you can delete it, but I don't really care.
Yeah, and maybe to also add to that, since we also have these quotas, for example, by default, you can only create 10 apps. That also encourages me as a data scientist to also clean up once I reach that limit, of course. I can also delete apps in the app service console. And also you have, they're connected to these use cases. And so use cases also have a life cycle, and it is also attached to that.
Yeah, the use cases have a life cycle, they have owners, they have compliance checks. All of that is handling on the use case level.
Thank you. Next question. Do you have a kind of it's data, I guess. Do you have a kind of data catalog so use case owners can see what's available?
Yes, we do have a data catalog, and there the data is cataloged, and then when you request access, you need to select you request access for a use case, and that's how use cases get access to data.
Okay, yeah. Next question. You use Streamlit and you use Snowflake. How you also investigated the Streamlit integration in a Snowflake for this?
Yes. So the thing launched 4 years ago. Snowflake didn't even buy Streamlit. And there's just a lot of things we built that would be very hard to rebuild on top of Snowflake, and then it would be only possible for Snowflake as a backend, and we have multiple other platforms. So we investigated it, and my personal opinion is that from running Streamlit in there is now, I would say, production ready. They started with a quite subpar experience where some features of the open source Streamlit did not even work in Snowflake and Streamlit. Yeah, I would say that's also something we wanted to say, right? If you have a platform, it's probably maybe Snowflake, Databricks. They are all offering features that you could use to build something similar. Snowflake has Databricks, Databricks has Databricks apps, which also allow token scoping. Not to that extent, but I've heard they are working on it. Snowflake, you can attach a role, and then you can scope this role down to the individual resources.
Thank you. Next question. Some of your data platforms, to my knowledge, at least Palantir Foundry, include ways to deploy custom web apps within UIs from within the platform. What are the added benefits of your platform compared to that?
It's a similar question to the one before. This one is about Foundry. The one before was about Snowflake. Yeah, again, 4 years ago, those capabilities were not existing. In Foundry, you can deploy web apps, so React apps or anything that can be a web app natively, but you cannot deploy container backends. So it's also not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, from a data data scientist perspective, I can also say that with this platform, and given that I can use I can use GitHub, which is like best in class for managing repositories. I can use GitHub Actions, and I feel like everything that, so I think the whole development workflow uses these best-in-class systems, whereas typically if you use the more like existing offerings from vendors, then in my experience, you typically don't have such a great development experience.
That's super good argument that I also wanted to say, that if you only pick the one from your platform provider, you might have to make compromises on picking best of breed technology. So you might need to use your repository in the proprietary platform, or you might need to use, maybe you cannot use a Docker container, but you have a different, so there are many arguments to having something on the side.
I think we also have a similar question if we get the time to reach to it. Next question, what does the change process for apps deployed on the platform look like? Think DORA.
Not sure what DORA stands for.
Me neither.
But the change process is we create a default pipeline, CI/CD pipeline, and then Bernhard can fully customize it. So they can invent their own change process, have approval gates or whatever is needed can be implemented.
If you want to explain your question, I can pass on the microphone. All right. Next question. Okay, great talk. How many people maintain the platform and build new templates?
Yeah, so for maintenance, we have one full-time developer recently added. Before that, maintaining is very low effort. So it was kind of part of a responsibility of one of my teams on the side. But now we have one, due to the growth, we have one dedicated developer, and we are working next on kind of a real app store where it's easy to register more templates, and where those templates can then be more easily inner sourced than today, than knowing me or others, to make it really scale across the company. So, yeah.
Right, something similar I see. Okay, I just pass it. Did you evaluate or can you compare with MS Power Platform, Microsoft Power Platform?
I can't.
No, I'm trying to stay away from that.
That's a good answer. Yeah, we all agree on that. Next question, is this service open source?
No.
Sorry.
Many of the things would be Merck specific, but I think we gave a great detail here how you could build such a service. Also, we have the 2 slides for the scoping. That's the way it is.
I guess we have time for...
But our baby package is open source, so if you are in the Bayesian optimization space,
Nice.
Baby.
They actually asked to see the code on GitHub.
Yeah.
So you can find it. Maybe.
So if you want, I think we tried to be very open about all of the details here. Of course, you can also approach us after the talk if you have more detailed questions.
Yeah, we are at the booth. Yeah. It's not to miss. Yeah. And we also have some merch if you want.
I just read out another question. Final question. Let me go for this one. What is the maintenance budget for the app service or templates? How much effort is it to add new use cases or components?
There's no, so to say, maintenance budget. As I said, if nothing changes, it's more or less zero maintenance. And the templates, we try to work together with our data and AI community and have inner source approach. So there's no dedicated, everyone can if they want, contribute. Otherwise, the templates are as they are. Of course, if there are security issues, we will fix it. But yeah, there is kind of a dynamic to get those templates to the next level, thanks to also Bernhard, for example.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentation. Let's thanks again our speaker.